Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming and joining us for the learning of Torah Hashem, Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. As always, we begin with appreciation to TorahAnytime.com for making this share possible to be heard in over 187 countries. TorahAnytime.com recently made available a dashboard for its speakers to follow to see how many people are listening to Shiurim. So I see that this shir that is broadcasted live on Thursday night has, in general, over 600 people listening to it. So I'm very gratified that so many of you are listening just on this one vehicle. Of course, we have the wonderful audience of the Global Coalition and Torah Communications Network and YouTube and Facebook and the subscribers, Zoomers, and the wonderful people here in our flagship station at Agudas Yisrael of Fairways. Tonight, we have two sponsors for this very important share. Dr. and Mrs. Block, who said last week that they would sponsor this week. They didn't know yet that they would be blessed with the great gift of a great-grandson, an Ir Einikel, to their children, Chavaleah or Chayaleah? Chavaleah and Yosef Samuel. They should be Zaycha, that they should see the wedding of this great-grandson. Be'ezras Hashem with Gesund. Dr. Block, who is often a sponsor of this year, is greatly appreciated. Another amazing Talmud and great sponsor of these shiurim is Mr. and Mrs. Nachman Chapler, who are dedicating tonight in memory of his wife's mother on her yahrzeit, Le'ilui Nishmas, Leah Bas Reb Chaim Wiedemann. Her neshama should have a lichtige Gan Eden. She should be a militzi yeshara for her family, for all of us, and all of Klal Yisrael. And once again, we do not have a sponsor for next week's shir, which is the Shabbos HaGadol shir, very chashuv shir. If you would like the sponsor, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Much talk is generated by the huge price of matzah. A mere concoction of flour and water could cost over $40, and from some companies up to $80 for a few matzahs. It goes that high, right? But the truth of the matter is that if we would realize what a matzah is, we would really view it as a bargain. The Zohar in Parshas Tetzaveh says that matzah is michla de asvasa. It's a bread of health. And from the simple rendering of the Zohar, it means health of refuas hanefesh. It's a refuah for the soul. People have things plaguing their soul. They're depressed. You see so many people walking around. They don't have smiling faces. They're downcast. They're sullen. They need a refuah hanefesh. Other people are racked by kinna, by jealousy. The Mukachirav, the Minchas Elazar, says that one should not think that it's reserved only for Rafus HaNefesh. He says when one's soul is healed, then the body gets better. And of course, many understand that matzah is also a bread of health for the body. So now, if we would stop over here and think that we have a food over here that gives health to the mind and health to the body. Wow. It's an elixir of life. But you have to know that the Chassam Sofer, and this Chassam Sofer is a fascinating Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer says the matzah is a lone relic of the great food of the past. The Chassam Sofer says the matzah is the only food left that is in itself a cheptza shel mitzvah d'oraisa. Let me explain to you what that means. We do have other biblical mitzvahs to eat. We have a mitzvah d'oraisa to eat in the sukkah. Especially the night of the 15th. We learn tesvav from Matza. We have to eat food in the sukkah. But there, the mitzvah is not in the food. We have a mitzvah to choose to eat in the sukkah. Same thing is true, we have a mitzvah to eat on Shabbos. It says hayayim, hayayim, hayayim 3 times. We have a mitzvah to wash 3 times on Shabbos. We have a mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. It says, B'tisha b'chaydish b'erev, that kol ha'oichel b'tshi b'chaydish, whoever eats 9th of Tishrei on Erev Yom Kippur, it's ki'ilu his'ana tshi v'asiri, it's as if he fasted 2 days. So we have a mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. But again, that's not that the food is a cheptza shel mitzvah. We have a mitzvah to choose to eat on Yom Kippur, on Erev Yom Kippur. We have a mitzvah to choose to eat on Shabbos. The only food, it used to be that there was food that in itself was intrinsically holy. We had the kachim. So if you bought a shlamim, a peace offering, so the portion that's yours from the shlamim, from the taida, the Thanksgiving offering, the ma'aseh behema, the 10th animal that you brought, the ma'aseh behema, so the portion of the meat that you ate in Yerushalayim, because kachim kalim were eaten, lefnim and achayim within the old city, that food was a cheftzah shel mitzvah. It was intrinsically holy food. A kayin ate truma, it was holy food. If you ate in Yerushalayim ma'aser sheni, that's holy food. The only lone survivor of holy food that we have left today is matzah. The Chassam Sofer says that when we eat matzah, we're ingesting a holy food. It's the only food the entire year that is in itself a cheptza shel mitzvah. The entire year, the only thing that you have to look at a matzah differently. That matzah is the only food on earth that it's a cheptza shel mitzvah. That's how chashuv the matzah is. The matzah also is a direct line to the Rebbeinu Shalom. They say that this person is very connected. The President of the United States picks up the phone whenever he calls. If he sees in the caller ID that it's this person, the President always picks up. Very connected. He has a direct line to the president. Rabbi Yeshua Belz, the Friedrich Belzer Rebbe, you know, when you hear something from the Belzer dynasty, wow. The Heilige Rabbi Yeshua Belz, he would say that matzah is called lechem only. Lechem she'oinin alav dvarim harba. Now, the simple meaning of that is, we know that we break the middle matzah, and we save the smaller, we put away the bigger piece, we save the smaller piece, because an ani only has a piece, and we make sure that we keep it, if you keep it, let's say you keep it inside, you have a beautiful matzah cover, we make sure that we have that half a piece sticking out, that it should be uncovered, except for when we give attention to the wine, like by Vihisha Amda, or when we're making the bracha of Asher Ga'alanu, right? But otherwise, when we're not giving attention to the wine, so we keep the matzah uncovered. Why? Because it's called lechem oini, lechem she'oinim alav dvarim harba. One of the meanings of lechem oini is it's bread that we answer many answers. Right? Because the children are asking questions the whole night. Manishtana, why do they do this? Why aren't we doing that? And it's the bread that we answer many answers. However, Rabbi Yeshua Mebel says it has a double meaning. It also means lechem she'oinim alav dvarim harba, that in the schus of this matzah, Hashem answers us many answers. It's similar to the Baal Shem Tov's pshat about what it says on Purim, Kol haposhit yad noisnum lo, whoever stretches his hand out, any poor person that stretches his hand out, we don't look into it too much, we give him. So the Baal Shem says it also means Kol haposhit yad, whoever stretches his hand out to heaven, noisnum lo. So here too, he says that the power of matzah is a direct line to the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's lechem she'oinim alav dvarim harba. You know that until recently, there's almost no bencher, no Haggadah, almost no Haggadah that was printed with Shalom Aleichem. Almost none. And every time when it falls out on a Friday, so those people that say Shalom Aleichem, they have to find a bencher to say the Shalom Aleichem, the Eishes Chayil. You would think, I have in the house about 200 Haggadahs. Almost none of them have Shalom Aleichem in them. The recent Mesifta Haggadah was printed with a Shalom Aleichem. The Haggadah from Rav Elyashiv has Shalom Aleichem in it. The reason why it doesn't have Shalom Aleichem is because there are many that hold that since on the night of its Seder it says of a Moira Gadol Zu Gilui Shechina, that the Shechina itself comes. It's a Leil Shimurim, a night of protection, the Shechina itself comes. We don't need the agency of the Malachim. Those people that say it, it's because of Hakaras HaTov to the Malachim for all the other Shabbos and Yom Tov. But the bottom line is, on the night of the Seder, there's an opportunity, there's Gilui Shechina, and through the device of matzah, it's lechem she'oinen olav dvarim harba. You should know that Rav Sternbach, it's a very interesting thing. Rav Sternbach writes that many people, it's my minig also, many people have a minig that after the children say manishtana, the other people at the table also say manishtana. And it was always my minig that after all the children and the grandchildren say Manishtana, so I, as the head of the Seder, say Manishtana. Now, I always thought it's because there's an Inyan to say the whole Seder Haggadah. So therefore, I say the whole Seder Haggadah, but Rav Sternberg says more than that. He says, when the children finish saying Manishtana, then the head of the household says Manishtana, asking his Father in heaven, that the Father in heaven should make clear all of the secrets of the Haggadah. So again, we're saying that the lechem she'oinen olav dvarim haba, the bread that many answers are given, is also being answered by the Rebbeinu Shalom. And there's a give and take between us and the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's a power of this vehicle of matzah. One of the Rishonim that throughout the year we quote in this shir, he's a fascinating Rishon. When I say Rishon, just for people to understand, a Rishon is like Rashi, like the Rambam, like the Ramban. They're from the early commentaries that we live by. So one of the Rishonim is the Rekeach. The Rekeach is a fascinating Rishon because he's also chock full of gematrias and remozim and hints. So the Rekeach writes that whoever is mekayim the mitzvah of Matza kihil chasai, whoever fulfills the mitzvah of Matza properly, nase shutef la'kadosh baruch hu b'maaseh bereishis, becomes a partner with Hashem in the creation of the world. That means you become a top tomato, a big cheese. It says this lashon in another place. Whoever says Vayichulu Friday night, Nasa Shutuf LaKadosh Baruch Hu B'maaseh Bereishis, because Hashem made Shabbos a day of rest, but it could only be a day of rest if we recognize and rest. So we become a partner in the fruition and the fulfillment of Hashem's will in creating the world. The Rekeach says that's true also when a Jew eats matzah on the night of the Seder. He becomes a partner with Hashem in what he wanted to accomplish. There are billions of people on the world. A person that eats matzah on the night of the Seder, Hashem says, you're my partner. And the Rekeach brings a proof from this. So such a fascinating thing. Rekeach says, Bruchim atem la Hashem Elokeichem, you are blessed by Hashem your God, Oisei Shemayim va'aretz, the maker of heaven and earth. The last letters, I told you that Rekeach is a master of the hints. The last letters of Oisei Shemayim va'aretz, maker of heaven and earth, spells matzah. Because Oisei is a hey, Shemayim is a mem, and Aretz is a tzadik. So it spells matzah. Bruchim atem la Hashem Elokeichem. Hashem blesses one and makes him a partner in the creation of heaven and earth. That's why Oisei Shemayim va'aretz ends with the letters matzah. One of the great Hasidic masters, is the Heilige Bnei Yissaschar. Bnei Yissaschar, Zecher Tzak, Kodesh Uvracha, says, and here again, you talk about spending money on a matzah. He says the schus of proper fulfillment of the mitzvah of matzah is a skula to have a successful livelihood. It's a skula for parnasa. Because he says it's known that it says ala chag nidoinin ala tfuah. On the festival of Pesach, Hashem gives a decision on tfuah. Now, in the olden days, when we were an agricultural economy, so tfuah was parnasa. But tfuah also means yield, take home pay. Ala chagni doinin ala tfu. On Pesach, one is judged with their take-home pay. And he says that our making our success in our livelihood is directly related to matzah. And he says, of course, in his amazing way, he says a gematria. He says, matzah lechem oini is gematria 343, and geshem is 343. You know, we know that geshem, we bench geshem. Geshem is gashmias, is our material success. So geshem is gematria matzah lechem oini. It's interesting that in our family it was always a minig that by halach ma'anya we lift up the matzahs. And when I lift up the matzahs, it's my minig to remind the family that parnasa, since I tell them that on Pesach we're judged on our livelihood, and the bread represents our livelihood, right? Bread. That's why money is called bread, you know, because it represents our livelihood. So we pick up the matzah and we remind everybody that parnasa is from God, that parnasa is from Hashem. And that's why the Per Aaron, it's that time of year now that I mentioned my favorite Haggadah, Beis Aaron, who has so many pirushim on the Haggadah. One of his pirushim on the Haggadah is called Per Aaron. Per Aaron is only gematrias and ramazim. He was murdered by the Nazis. His Haggadah survived with a whole chain of miracles. It was bought by the manuscript was bought by an American soldier. It's a whole story. The one who he gave it to also succumbed to the Nazis, but it survived miraculously. For many years, I had it in manuscript form. Now, of course, I have it. It was printed. He has many pirushim in it. The Devar Aaron is pshat. Ruach Hadasha is brilliant. Chidushim Breichos Becheshbon is mathematical complications. Agudas Ezov is midrashim on the Haggadah. Marvelous Sapper is stories that he saw by Gedolei Yisrael. It's a remarkable Haggadah, remarkable. And for decades I've been sharing from this Haggadah with my Talmidim, and already now more than one generation of Talmidim. In the Per Aaron, he also has two pirushim there, which I don't understand. It's pure Kabbalah. It's amazing what a genius this man was. He was taken away by the Nazis. Hashem Yinkum Damai, Sivsoisav Doivavos Bekever, he should be a Melis Yosher on all of us. So he says that there are three names of Hashem. You know, we know different names of Hashem have different manifestations. Yud Kei Vav Kei is Midas Harachamim, and Elohim is Midas Hadin. There are three names of Hashem that are manifestations of livelihood. They are Poi, Pei Aleph Yud, and that, by the way, is the Rosh Tevis of Piseach Es Yodecha. Hashem opens your hand. They are Chatach, and again, Chatach is the last letters of Piseach Es Yodecha. Piseach ends with a Ches, S ends with a Taf, and Yodecha ends with a Chaf. So that's Chatach. And there's another, and by the way, Chatach is the reason why we buy a knife at Rosh Hashanah as a skula, that Hashem should give us a good livelihood. We're invoking the name of Hashem of Chatach to cut. And then there's one other name, So'el, Samach Aleph Lamed. Those three names are the acronym of Pesach, because the Pei of Pesach is Poi, the Samach of Pesach is So'el, and the Ches of Pesach is Chatach. Because Pesach, the fulfillment of the mitzvah of Matza, helps one's livelihood incredibly. Now, by the way, we know that on Erev Pesach, that's when Avraham Avinu was visited by the three angels, and there was the remarkable episode where they came disguised as Arabs, and Hashem didn't want Avraham, who was 100 years old, and he was after surgery with the Mila, he didn't want anybody bothering him, but he saw that Avraham wanted so much, he was in more pain that he wasn't getting gas, but nobody could go out in that heat, so he sent him angels so he could fulfill the mitzvah of chesed, and they were disguised as lowly nomadic merchants. They weren't Arabs, Yishmael wasn't created yet, but they were like Arabians, they were nomads, sand worshippers, the lowest people. And Avram did amazing, he ran after them, even though he just had surgery, and he prepared them a whole repast. So, in the night of this episode, we know it was Pesach because he told his wife, Lushi v'asei ugais, make the ugais is round cakes, matzahs. He told her, Lushi, who tells his wife of 89 years, who tells her Lushi, need. You don't think she knows that you have to need after 89 years? Tell her, make matzah. What's Lushi? You tell your wife, need? But it was for Pesach. So he was reminding her to need it, because if you stop working on it, it's no good, right? So that incredible act of kindness and that desire of chesed, we recall when we start the Seder and we imitate it, and we say, Kol dichvin yesei v'yechel, whoever is hungry, come in and eat. We're showing with children of Avraham Avinu, Kol ditzrich yesei v'yifsa. And we tell our children, of course, we're not expecting anybody to come in, the doors are closed. We already made Kiddush. But we're telling you, we gave money to Kimcha de Pischa, to Mayis Chitin, and we took care of people in the Bakavadik way that they could eat in their own homes. But we're telling them, you want to know, we picked up the matzah and said Parnas is from God. You should know it comes from giving to others. That's why Avram, it says Hashem Berachas Avram Bakol, because he gave to others. So the Abiyah Omer says a very interesting thing. The Abiyah Omer says, Ha Lachma, the Gemara in Bava Basra, we spoke about it recently, the Gemara in Bava Basra, we had it in the Chok. Gemara in Bava Basra and Daf Tes says that if a person gives money to the poor, he's blessed with 6 blessings. If he says nice things, he makes him feel good, he's blessed with another 11 blessings. So he says, that's what we say, Ha Lachma Anya. Ha, Hey Aleph is 6. So by giving the bread, we get 6 blessings. Anya is composed of Ayin Nun and Yud Aleph. If we're oine, if we answer them sweetly, have a nice day, I hope you do good today, then there's another Yud Aleph, then there's another 11. We give this in the blessing that we teach our children. You want to have good livelihood? Aser b'shvil shetisasher. Give tzedakah, you'll become rich. Now, the Heilige Divrei Yecheskel, Zech Tzadik Levracha, the Divrei Yecheskel was the Shinner Rebbe. Shinner Rebbe was the awesome, holy, venerable son of the Gadol Adar, the Divrei Chaim of Tzanz. The Shinner Rebbe himself was an awesome tzaddik. The Divrei Yecheskel says that there is a siman that the proper eating of matzah helps us the next year to succeed on Rosh Hashanah when we ask for another good year. And he says the remez is, it says, Hayoim atem yoitzim b'chodesh Aviv. On this day, on Pesach, you went out in the spring. He says, Hayoim refers to Rosh Hashanah. Hayoim haras haylam. Hayoim yamid b'mishpat. Hayoim atem yoitzim. On this day of Rosh Hashanah, you'll be yoitze b'din, you'll be zeicha b'din, b'chodesh Aviv, because of the schus of Matza. And it's interesting, going from Hasidish to Svardik, the great prolific Chacham of the Svardim, Rav Chaim Pelagi. Rav Chaim Pelagi wrote 200 Svarim. Just give you an idea of what an amazing Chacham he was. He writes that he wraps up a piece of matzah and puts it away and eats it on Rosh Hashanah because of this reason. Hayayim atem ya'itim, because of the schus of Chodesh Av. It's a real wonderful thing. You know, I go away for Pesach, so it's hard for me to do it. But I want to make it mamish, you know, just like I make it my business to put some oil in the sukkah and use that for Hanukkah. I want to put away a piece of matzah to eat it on Rosh Hashanah. Hayayim atem, it's from the Hasidic master, the Shinova Rebbe, to the great Svardik Gadol, it's mamish universal, Reb Chaim Pelagi. The Sefer Skulas Yisrael. I want to show you that no matter what you spend on your matzah, this remarkable only food, you know, you might like cholent. I love cholent. You might like Frank's, pastrami on rye. You might like a good blintz. The only food left in the history of mankind from the days gone by that is a chefza shel mitzvah is the matzah. And look at the power it packs. We haven't even touched the surface yet. The Sefer Skulas Yisrael in Mareches Mem, it goes through the order of the Aleph Beis. In Mareches Mem, writes the B'schus Mitzvah Sukkah, the Matzah, the schus of the Mitzvah of Matzah, Nitzoilin Midvarim Roim. A person is saved from bad things. It's brought down in many of the Minig Svarim that sailors that are on the high sea, sailors on the high sea, they were in grave danger. Many people were never heard of again. They were lost on the high seas. You know, the Rambam had a brother who supported him that he should be able to learn, a great brother. The Rambam's brother was lost at sea. That's when the Rambam started to have to become a doctor. He became the doctor of the Sultan's harem. The Sultan only trusted the Rambam because his brother died. His brother was supporting him. So it says that sailors that went to the high seas would keep a piece of matzah from the Seder with them. And the Skulas Yisrael says that the source of this, and many other Svarim bring it down, says the source of this is because it says, Mikol Tzara Hatzileni. It's a pasuk in Tehillim. You know me, I like to look at the address. So the address of this pasuk in Tehillim, Ki Mikol Tzara Hatzileni, is Perek Nun Dalid, pasuk Tes, which is very easy to remember because Nun Dalid is done, and Tes stands for Taiv. You want to get a good judgment? So It says, Mikol Tzara Hatzileni, from all distress save me. That's Rosh Tevis Matza. Mikol Tzara Hatzileni, Mem Tzadik Hey. So it's a skula to be saved. Might not be such a bad idea. I don't like very much flying. I don't like 30,000 feet in the air, although I mentioned earlier that the captain told me that there's never a time that they feel that they're not in control at all. Says the equipment that they have could handle much, much, much more turbulence without any problems. But you know, there's a Tiferes Yisrael that says that sailors are God-fearing because there's only a piece of board that separates them from the perils of the water below. Well, just one piece of wood. So there's a little metal separating you from 30,000 feet below. Right? So maybe it's not such a bad idea to carry a piece of matzah. The Ben Ish Chai says that matzah is a skula for arichas yamim, to live longer. And he says that's why in the parsha it says matzas, mem tzadik saf. Now really it's read matzos, but it's missing, it's defective, it's without the vav. So it's read mem tzadik saf. And Ben Ish Chai, the great Svardik guy, the Ben Ish Chai says that that's because when a person eats matzah on the night of the Seder, at that moment he's a tzaddik. He's a tzaddik. And he says that tzaddik interrupts between the mem and saf of mace and saves him from death. That's why it's matzahs without a vav. Because he becomes a tzaddik, and then that tzaddik intervenes between the mem and the saf and stops one from death. There's a famous Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer says that numerically the difference between chametz and matzah is 3. Right? What's the gematria of matzah? 135. Right? Mem is 40, tzadi is 90, that's 130. And hay is 135. The gematria of chametz is 138. He says the difference is the 3 things that cause a person to leave this world early. Kina, taiva, and kavod, moitzian esa adam min ha'olam. Jealousy, desire, and honor cause a person to leave this world early. He says matzah is bereft of these things. Matzah is not jealous. It's just flour and water. Matzah is not an involvement of taiva because it has no spices, it has no condiments. And there's no kavod, it's lowly, not like the puffed up matzahs. Matzah is a skula for arichas yamim because it represents the absence of the 3 things, lust and jealousy and the pursuit of honor, which are things that cause people to leave this world early. The rot of the bones of jealousy, the unbridled lust and addictions, and how a person runs and is not fulfilled with wanting his desires, and the quest for honor that leads people to hate and to have arguments and lashon hara. But I can't finish this angle, this element of arichas yamim, without sharing you something from Harav Tzvi Elimelech Medinov, another great Rebbe. The Heilige Dinova, Zeich Tzaddik Kodesh V'Racha, he says that it's known, it's brought down in many of the Sfarim HaKadoshim, that a person has a finite amount of words in his lifetime. Now, we're not talking about learning, we're not talking about davening, that you could do without any, but idle chatter a person has a quota. And when they use up that quota, they die. And he quotes a pasuk, Nafshi yotza b'dabroi. His soul goes out when his talk is up. The allotment is up. That's why it says in Pirkei Avos, Le'matzasi l'guftay mishtiket. There's nothing better than quiet for the body. It preserves life. The Heilige Dinah says that one of the schusim of Matza, since it's lechem she'oinin alav dvarim harba, Hashem answers us with many words. It's a replenishment in the tank for the words of life. And it gives Arichas Yam really amazing chiddush from the Heilige Dinah. So I told you that this year, one of the amazing Haggadahs that came out for the English audience is the Haggadah of Rav Sternbach. So Rav Sternbach, when he talks about the lessons of the Matza, he says a very interesting thing. He says the halacha is that you can't be yotzi on the night of the Seder with matzah made with fruit juices. If you made matzah just with apple juice, it can be very delicious. But you're not yotzi on the night of the Seder with such matzah. And the reason why you're not yotzi is, as the Ramban explains, matzah that you're yotze with by the Seder is only if it could become chametz. And you, matzah shmura, you watched it from becoming chametz. Matzah that cannot leaven, if it's made with fruit juice, it can never become fully fermented. You can't be yotze. Now you'll say, what do you mean? That's the best. It's never going to be a shash of chametz. Says, listen to what Rav Sternbach says. In life, the accomplishment of life is overcoming the challenges. Not being in a situation where you're not challenged. So therefore it has to be dough that could ferment. You made sure it didn't ferment, and only with such dough do you fulfill the mitzvah. You want to have a life with its fulfillment? It's a life where you overcame the challenges, where you successfully navigated the hurdles. And then he says over a remarkable story from his Rebbe, which we mentioned several times recently, the Venerable Rav Moshe Schneider. Zecher Tzadik L'Bracha Zchus Yagen Aleinu. He says that a chassan came to his Rebbe and asked his Rebbe for a bracha, for a blessing, before he got married. So Rav Schneider asked him, what kind of a bracha do you want? So he says, I want a bracha that life should go smooth. So Rav Schneider says, that's not a bracha. Life is fulfilled when we successfully overcome our challenges. And according to the hardship is the reward. L'fum tzara agra. Instead, I'll give you a bracha that you should have the siyata d'shmaya to succeed and be able to handle your challenges in life. Rav Sternbach goes on to say that you see that it says by Yaakov, Bikesh Yaakov Leishev B'Shalva. Yaakov wanted to have tranquility, solitude. So Rashi says, Kafza alav roig shel Yosef. So right away, he had the trouble with Yosef being sold, being missing. They brought him his tunic, Taraf Yosef. So you see, that's not the ambition to have Shalva. And he brings another proof. He says that it says the Nachash was cursed. What was the Nachash's curse? Offer toichel kol yemei chayecha. You should eat earth all your life. So he says, what kind of curse is that? Earth is everywhere. So that means he was given parnasa. He was given a credit card for life. That's a curse. Says Rav Sternbach, it's a curse because just having easy street, that's not a successful life. So first I want to tell you that this didn't sit well with me. Rav Sternbach is a tzaddik. I don't get up to the dirt under his toenails. But this didn't sit well with me. Because the fact of the matter is, every morning in the Yiratzin that we make, in Amar V'Sheina, we ask Hashem, Al Tavienu Lo Lidei Nizay. Don't bring me to challenge. Furthermore, if you look very carefully at the bracha of Sim Shalom, we ask Hashem that he should be Mevarich Yisrael B'chol eis u'v'chol shah, every season and every moment b'shlomecha, with your peace. What do we ask Hashem when we bench Reish Chodesh? Chaim shel shalom, a life of peace. Chaim shel tova, a life of good. Chaim shel bracha, a life of blessing. Chaim she'yamala mishalei seinu l'tova, kol mishalei seinu l'tova. What do we say at the end of benching? Umikol tov, and from all the good that you give me, Hashem, la ilam al yichasein. I should never be lacking. There shouldn't be a moment where I'm lacking it. It's eminently clear that we ask Hashem that we should have it smooth. So you'll say, but what about Yaakov Bikesh, Yaakov Leishe B'Shalva? The truth of the matter is it could be that Yaakov, he had to experience hardship. Because the Maisa Avay Simen Labanim, the koyach that he injected into the DNA of Klal Yisrael to overcome when they have difficult times, came from Yaakov. He needed it. That's what it says. Yancha Hashem b'yoyim tzara, Yisagevcha Hashem elikei Yaakov. Yaakov, he put that koyach. He had to. He was an of. You'll say, what about the snake? It was a curse. So that the Chidushei Rim asks. So what was the curse? The curse was Hashem says, I don't want to hear from you. Here's your panasa and leave me alone. You're so wretched, I don't want to hear from you. I'm not interested in hearing from you. That was the curse. Then what did Rav Moshe Schneider, the Heilige Rav Moshe Schneider, mean when he said to the Chassan, that's the wrong request? I wasn't there, I don't know. But it's very possible that Rav Moshe Schneider was injecting reality into a young boy. Don't live in a fantasy that everything is going to be smooth sailing. That's not life. Don't, otherwise he'll be disappointed. And that's not life. It's going to be hard times. But now, it's interesting, in Chicago, I had this zechia to meet. It was a Smilowitz wedding. My wife's best friend, Ahuva Smilowitz, married off her daughter. So her uncle was Rav Hershel Shechter, is Rav Hershel Shechter, the Venerable Rosh Shiva of Bayu. So at the wedding, by the chuppah, we sat together. So I was preparing the shir, so I asked him about my feelings. And Rav Shechter said to me that he agrees with me, that there's nothing wrong to ask Hashem for smooth sailing. You know, they say that you should ask Rebbes for Menuchas HaNefesh. However, it's really a little bit semantics. Because what Rav Sternbach is saying, that you could only fulfill matzah with a mixture that can become chametz, and you make sure that it doesn't become chametz. That's life. Life is not to say, you know what? I see many people getting married and they have problems. You know what? It's safer not to get married. Safer not to get married. There's so much divorce. There's so many people that are unhappy. You know what? I'll stay single. Hashem made it. Not that we should be in a situation where we shouldn't be challenged. No, like Rav Sternbach says, Hashem wants us to be married and learn how to live with another person and learn how to negotiate an ezer kenegdai, a woman who's different than us, a man that's different than us. Hashem doesn't want us to say, you know what? What do I need extra money? I don't want to have discretionary income. If I have discretionary income, then I'm tempted not to give tzedakah. Then I'm tempted to be greedy. I won't have discretionary income. No! Hashem wants us to learn to give tzedakah. A woman says, you know what? What do I need children for? I don't have a mitzvah. She's in a second marriage. Her husband already fulfilled the mitzvah period of Arivia. He already had a boy and a girl. So what do I need children for? Look what's going on in the world. There's so many children at risk. Kids in pain. Children off the derech. What do I need it for? No! We're put on this world, yes, to overcome challenges. That's when we become great. But that we shouldn't ask for smooth sailing. I think it's pretty clear that we ask Hashem, I don't want to be tested. Here you have a man. A man told me this. He said it was an incredible test. His wife was not too nice to him. And he had a secretary who was very nice to him. And then she came on him. She came on to him. So he had to fire her, because otherwise it would have been big. But he said it was a big test. Who wants to have such tests? Ah, yeah, but what do we do? So here's the key. Oh my goodness, I spent too much time on this. I'm going to have to talk fast. Here's the key. Hashem says, as long as you're alive, as long as we're alive, we're not a malach. A malach is an oimid. A malach is static. As long as we're alive, we have to be a hoilich. We have to achieve. Hashem created that we should be productive. We tell Hashem, don't test me. I'm going to make myself goals. I'm always going to grow. Like we said last year, I'm always going to start. So I'm going to say, I want to learn more. I want to be nicer to my spouse. I want to try to give more money to tzedakah. I want to have more kavanah in my davening. I want to learn more of my davening. We should always be making more projects. Then Hashem says, I got to give nisyanis to people that are vegetating, to people that are just sitting and not growing. So then I have to give them a challenge so that they should grow. So therefore we look to grow ourselves. Now, it says about matzah, we all know this. This is the ikar kavanah of matzah. Ki b'chipazon yotzasam in Mitzrayim. That we came out of Mitzrayim in haste. 3 million people left a land that no one ever escaped from. It had closed borders. And 3 million people left before it had time to rise, in less than 18 minutes. We all know the Arizal. The Arizal says that we didn't have a moment to spare. We had to go out Bachatzais because we were at the 49th level of Tumah. If we would have stayed another moment, we wouldn't have been worthy to be redeemed. And therefore we got out at the nick of time. And of course we have Rav Zalman Sorotzkin who says that how could we survive all these years in Galus for thousands of years? So he says we have the Torah. They didn't have the Torah. With the Torah we could survive for thousands of years. Without the Torah we wouldn't have survived a minute more than 210 years. Not a second more. You had to leave. So Rav Sternbach says that there's a tremendous lesson from here. And that is, don't delay from removing yourself from sin. Because you never know when it could be the last minute. And I believe that this is another meaning in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. The famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, Al taimer likishe efne eshne. Don't say, when I get the turn, I'll learn. Shemalei tipana. Maybe you'll never get the chance. People put off their learning. I can't learn now, I'm making parnasa. I can't learn on my vacation, I need a rest now, when I retire. And then they retire, their eyesight is no good, they don't have the patience, their mind is weak. Don't say when I get a chance. Eshna, shemalei tipan. But I think there's another, Eshna doesn't just mean learn. It means to change. Yeah, one day I'll change. Don't put it off. Shemalei tipana. Here's a man. He's a tyrant to his wife. He says, look, I know, I got to get my act together. One of these days. Here's a person, he's davening. His davening is terrible. He knows it. He's davening and he's daydreaming. He's not paying attention at all. He says, yeah, one day I'm going to learn what it is. I don't have time now, but one day. When I get a turn, I'll change. Shemalei tipana. Don't wait. It has to be now. It might not be. It might be the last minute. So that's one of the great lessons of Matza. We don't put it away. We don't put it off. You know, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, there's a famous kasha. When Yosef was tempted by the wife of Potiphar, so he ran away from her, and he left his clothing in her hands. That's how she made the accusation. Look, I have his clothing. Yosef was a lot stronger than the wife of Potiphar. Why didn't he take his clothing? Why didn't he grab it from her? So Ramban says he wouldn't fight with her because of Akos HaTov to the house. He couldn't raise his hand at the mistress of Potiphar. But Rav Chaim Shmulevitz said he didn't stay another second, because he said another second with this seductress, he would have succumbed. He was careful of that second. He knew he couldn't wait another second. It's such a lesson not to put off. We see the tragedy that happened to Nadav and Avihu. The great Nadav and Avihu, B'kroi v'yakadesh. Moshe Rabbeinu said they're greater than us. The Gemara says they died because they never got married. Now they died because they brought an Eish Zara, a strange fire. They changed the curriculum in the Beis Hamikdash. But if they would have had wives, their wives wouldn't have deserved to lose them, and it would have saved them. But they never got married. They didn't find anybody yet. They didn't have children. The children would have saved them. But they pushed it off. You can't push it off. You never know when it's not too late. On the other hand, it's a proof that the Yeshua of Hashem can come in an instant, like the blink of an eye. We got out 3 million people. They said it will take months for us to leave this land. There's no way to get out of this land. Less than 18 minutes. Yeshua's Hashem Keherifayim, like the blink of an eye. When it was time for Yosef HaTzadik, he languished in a pit 12 years. It was the time. Vayiritzu min habar. They rushed him out of the pit. When it came the time for the Yeshua by the Megillah, Ma'aru Haman Lasa, he says to Bar Esther, Rosh Haman to do the words of Esther. Vayom HaMelech LaHaman, Maher, Kach, Es HaLavush, Ves HaSus. You should know that the Yeshua of Hashem could happen just like that. I want to conclude, it's already an hour, but I can't conclude this discussion, and we're not even touching the surface. But I can't conclude this discussion, and again I want to thank our sponsors, Dr. Block in honor of his great-grandson, and Nachman Chapler in honor of his wife's mother, who passed away, and it's her Yortzeit Leah Bas Reb Chaim Wiedemann. If you enjoy these shiurim and you want to have, what a schus of Matza to sponsor a shir, 718-916-3100. You could text me, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. My shiurim are now uploaded normally also, besides the great platform of TorahAnytime.com. There's many shiurim on YouTube. Remember to subscribe if you use either platform. The Zohar has another name for matzah besides Michla da Asvasa. The Zohar calls it Nama de Mehemnusa, bread of faith. And it says, there are people that grapple with their amunah in Hashem. Look, I never saw Hashem. Seeing is believing. They grapple with amunah. The absorption of the matzah gives people more of an innate amunah. That's an amazing thing. The Minchas Chinuch asks, why do women have a mitzvah to say the Haggadah? It's a mitzvah sasei shazman grama. It's limited by time. Women are generally patur from a mitzvah that's limited by time. Why do they say Hallel by the Seder? It's a mitzvah that's limited by time. So many answer this. The Kilos Yaakov brings down that just like we say that you can't just drink 4 cups of wine. If you drink 4 cups of wine, you're not Yotzi on the night of the Seder. It has to be 4 cups ala Seder. The first cup is Kiddush, the second cup is the Haggadah, the third cup is benching, and the fourth cup is Hallel. It has to be drank ala Seder. The matzah has to be matzah lechem sha'oinen olav dvar ma'ava. You have to say many words on it. You have to say the Haggadah. You have to say the Hallel. If it's bereft of the Hallel and the Haggadah, it's a chesaron in matzah. Now, since women are chayiv in matzah, that we know because it says that kol oichel machmetzes v'nichrusa shivas yomim toichel matzah. So whoever is chayiv in the lav of chametz is chayiv in the mitzvah of matzah. So women that are chayiv in all the lavim, they're chayiv in matzah. And in order to be yotzi the matzah, they have to say the Haggadah and Hallel. So Rabbi Gladstein writes in his wonderful Haggadah, he says the matzah absorbs all the words of faith of the Haggadah. Right? V'hisham dolav yiseinu v'lanu. All the words of that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. If not, we would still be there. all the words of Hallel, Haidul Hashem, Kitov, Kilel, Chaska, that's all absorbed in the matzah. And therefore the matzah is Nama de Memnusa. And when you ingest this lone Chefza Shel Mitzvah, it benefits our faith as well. So any money that you spend on matzah is a great investment for health, for livelihood, to be saved from tzaras, for arichas yamim, for emunah. We should be zeicha to eat the matzah with gesund and to merit all of its many blessings. Have a good night and a good Shabbos.